Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Merle Massey. I'm the executive director of the Do More Agriculture Foundation. Do More was created in 2017 here in Canada by farmers for farmers. And it's designed to help communities to cultivate a culture of mental well-being. And that's for everyone across Canada's rural and agricultural communities. We're so delighted. Our Field of Mind sessions, which are sponsored by Farm Credit Canada, we've had 4 sessions. This is the fourth one so far in 2025, the fourth and last. And we've designed the Field of Mind sessions to specifically focus on men's mental health. One of the things that we know is that depending on your gender, you experience mental health challenges differently. For men, oftentimes it comes up more as you've got physical clues. You're not feeling well physically. And oftentimes that can indicate something going on with your mental health. But one of the reasons why we wanted to host this session today is I get to talk to a couple of guys that I've met in my travels here at Do More Ag, who are huge advocates for the men's shed movement, not only in Canada, but, really bring in their knowledge from around the world. And so with that, I would love to welcome Brian Sawyer and Punch Jackson with us today to talk about men's shed in Canada. And I'm going to call on each of you to introduce yourself, because that's always best. I could always, talk about you, but, I think it's best if you introduce yourself. And Brian, can I start with you?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yes, clearing my throat. This is the first time I'm talking this morning. Well, thanks, Merle. Uh, my name is Brian Sawyer. I live in Edmonton, and I am sort of the outreach coordinator for Men's Sheds Canada. We're a national organization. We're a charity, and our goal is to start sheds across Canada. And so I have the wonderful job of getting to work with guys across the nation from Nova Scotia to Vancouver Island and help them start a men's shed. That's
I
me.
think that's brilliant. Thanks so much, Brian. Punch, you get to introduce yourself.
I'm Punch Jackson, and I'm the co-chair of the Alberta Men's Shed Association. I've been retired for 16 years. I just clicked in on the 80 mark, and interestingly enough, I'm not a shedder. I discovered a long time ago that there were levels in the shed movement, and there's the guys that are on the chop saw, there's the leaders in the sheds, regional people, and then there's the advocates and the advisors and ambassadors. And that's where I am, trying to create awareness of men's sheds.
I think that that's brilliant. And I love how you showcase that whole range, that you can become involved in men's shed in so many different ways. I think that's makes my heart sing because we can't all be in there hammering and chopping. There are other ways that we can help and support, which is one of the reasons why you guys are here today. I want to know, Punch, when did you first hear about men's sheds and how did it appeal to you? And then I will pass that same question over to Brian, but Punch, we'll start with you.
I started poking around with men's sheds prior to my retirement. I was doing some research about, well, what was I going to do when I retired? Because I have a workshop, and unfortunately, I'm a mallet man, and which is not a fine carpenter. Um, I got connected after retirement by starting a newspaper called Men's Sheds Across the World, and I was collecting stories and then formatting them into a newspaper. And the goal was to try to create awareness across the world about all the different types of sheds there are and what guys are doing, and simply to try to motivate people to get started. So that's how I got into it.
That's phenomenal. Brian, how about you? When did you first hear about men's sheds?
Well, I was retiring about 5 years ago, and I was thinking of starting a men's group because I belong to men's groups for a long time, but some of them are kind of serious and some of them are. But I wanted to get together a group of guys that just just talk and relate regularly. And somebody pointed me to a friend of Punch's who said, and I talked to him and he said, well, did you know about Men's Shed? Have you heard about it? And so I joined up and I realized there's no need to start something that's already started. And because I was after retirement, I had this vision of doing nothing for the rest of my life, and which is just great having come from a work environment. And that worked for about 6 months. And then I got pretty darn bored and purposeless. And I really wanted to get together with other guys. So it came up at just the right time. I joined the men's shed, and then COVID hit, but we continued online. We continued online, and Punch was in that group. So Punch is a very inspiring man. He's very modest, but he has influenced many shedders in Edmonton and across the country. So that's how I got interested, and I never looked back. Getting together with guys my age or and younger is a heck of a lot of fun, and we're really proud of the stuff we do in the community. So this is just this part of my life now.
Brian, can you tell the people who've never, maybe they have no experience and they don't know what a men's shed is? What is a men's shed? How do you describe it?
It's the guys. It's not necessarily the shed. I'm going to say that men's shed started in Australia about 30 years ago. And in Australia, shed means meeting place. It doesn't mean where I put my lawnmower. It means where we gather. And so um, a shed is really a place where men gather, and it can start in a coffee shop, frankly. It can start anywhere where two or more guys get together and decide they want to gather regularly. They end up finding a space because they want to do something bigger. They want to maybe make a workshop or uh, work in a community center or support their community in some way. So they find a room, they find a space, and they regularly meet there. But it is not a shed as we think of it. It's a meeting space. And the shed is really all about the guys. And so my example is I started my shed in a community center. I attracted one more guy just by saying, I'm going to be there I'm going to put the coffee on, come and join me. Then we got two more guys to join, and now we're up to 15 or 16, and we're happy as clams. And we meet regularly once a week. Every other shed is different because they have had a different set of circumstances which started them. What we have in common is we're all guys who want to get together regularly and support each other and give back to the community. So the variety of sheds, and Punch can testify more to this because he's in contact with sheds around the world. The variety is as big as there are men, so groups of men.
Punch, that's exactly your time to chime in. Tell us about sheds, not just across Alberta, but across Canada and around the world. What kind of sheds have you seen? How do guys come together?
Well, they come together the same way Brian has described. They, but they gather around in different different places. They may be in an old barn. It may be the coffee shop. It may be somebody's garage. It may be an old building that they're trying to rebuild, and there's some rooms in it, and the guys go there. Uh, it may be some tiny little wee 8 by 8 shed, and they have a table in it and a cribbage board, and for sure a coffee pot or a big teapot. So it's the the sheds tend to evolve as well. So the guys that have that 8 by 8 may have dreams about something bigger, and they move to something bigger and bigger and bigger. And we have some sheds in the world that are almost like factories or big, huge clubhouses. In it's amazing what they have in New Zealand in terms of the facilities that they have. They almost look, in some ways, and this may not be the most appropriate word, but they almost look like country clubs. And they have dining areas, they have hidden away, they have a big workshop area, they have meeting rooms, they have pool rooms, or they shoot pool. But it's taken years for them to get there. But that was what their vision was, their dream. But in the back, there's still the people meeting and talking, or they're talking when they're shooting pool, but they're talking all the time. That's the key.
That's actually where I want to go next, Punch. Why is it different for men to come together? How does a men's shed support men differently than say something like that we see that's more common in Canada, maybe being a hockey coach or belonging to a service club, for example. How is being part of a men's shed different?
Brian?
And over to me. Yeah, well, for me, it's very there's I'll speak for myself as a guy, and I'm kind of typical. I don't ask for directions and I don't ask for help. It's really difficult for me. I I grew up much like maybe many of the guys in your community, the farming community, being very independent. If something needed to get done, I did it. Um, and so I was successful during my career, but when my career ended, I didn't have a support network. I didn't ask. So I lost my whole community when I retired. I lost the whole community of people that I had related with, like my day family, for my life, 30 or 40 years of work. So I ended up kind of alone and feeling somewhat purposeless. And what I liked about men's sheds was it's peer to peer. It's just guys. It didn't matter whether I was a medical, and it doesn't matter whether I'm a medical doctor or a roofer or a farmer or a rancher. We're all guys, and we have a different set of life experiences and a different set of skills. And I just love talking to the guys about how different we are and how common we are. And that's quite different from talking to my wife or talking to other women, which is just terrific. But somehow, when guys get together, we start to open up about some of the things that we couldn't open up about in public, or even with our spouse, even with our partner. There's some things about growing older as a man that only we know about, and we can start as we build up the trust. We start to talk to each other, and as Punch says, as we work shoulder to shoulder, we're working on a project. We start to talk about our relationships with our kids, with our spouses, or some of the things that are bothering us. We've suffered a lot of losses in our lives as we get older, not only by retirement, but by maybe moving or downsizing or losing our economic capacity or our physical capacities. That's a fairly sensitive issue to talk about. And when we get together, we talk about those things that I couldn't do in mixed company. I'll just say that.
I think if you just go back to your example of the hockey coach, the hockey coach is teaching kids. He's focused on the kids. He's focused on the sport. He's not standing at center ice talking to another coach about, I got these problems. I've got these issues. He's not standing shoulder to shoulder to anybody except those kids. And so I think that's a key difference is the ability for the guys to somehow it's this is one of my challenges, I guess, is trying to figure out what actually happens in the shed. Because you come in there and the guys, it's a very simple process. Someplace to go, something to do, and someone to talk to. Okay. And then what happens? Something happens inside. And it's like, I don't like using this phrase, but it's like somebody goes across the top and sprinkles magic dust on the place. And suddenly these guys are talking to each other. And if you don't believe it, you have to experience it. Because when I first started this thing, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it would happen. And when I actually saw it happen within 3 weeks of a shed being established, and the guys were talking to each other and they were showing concern and uh, helping each other. And we need more research on this to help us explain it better, I guess. Magic dust won't do it for the
I
fun here.
kind of like that though, I love that shoulder to shoulder and the way you broke it down, punch, somewhere to go, something to do, someone to talk to, right? Like how much simpler can you get than that? It's a brilliant way to kind of capture what happens. And that shoulder to shoulder piece really showcases that, you're shoulder to shoulder and working together on a project or whatever it is that you're doing, and you're not face to face. You're not like deer in the headlights. Oh my gosh, now I have to talk. It becomes a little bit more natural. At least
When
that's the way
I,
that I hear it. Did I hear it right?
yeah, when I bang my head against the wall and people don't understand, my wife will say to me, Punch, it's too simple. How can something that produces such phenomenal results be so simple? So we just keep plugging away here.
The power of simplicity, though.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Please.
That I agree with Punch. Magic happens, when older guys get together. It's such a difference between if I thought that, well, I'm now 65, I'm retired. It's the long, slow downhill slide to the retirement home, versus I'm in the fourth quarter of my life. I have a whole lot of life experience to share. I have energy. I have time. I can be an elder in the community, and instead of being elderly. And when I get together with other guys like me, the magic just happens. The idea is we're a creative bunch, it turns out. This is like the fourth quarter of our lives, and it's going to be a good one. And we're not on the slow downhill slide. We have a whole lot to offer to younger men, to ourselves. It becomes like a second family. So magic does happen.
Brian, you've brought up a couple of times age.
Yeah.
So can you unpack that a little bit more? Is a men's shed primarily for older gentlemen? Is it who's it for?
Well, it turns out that the shed movement, most of us are older guys who get together. We have the time, we have the interest. We retired, we've got all this to offer to the community and know where to put it. So most of us are older guys. We start the shed, and then younger men get attracted. And then all of a sudden, a lot of younger men get attracted because some younger men don't have positive role models in their lives. It just happens. And here's a bunch of guys who are willing to work with them. Intergenerational work is what we so much enjoy. I don't have grandkids, but if I did, that's where I would. But I love working with younger men. Lots of us love working with younger men, doing some mentoring, doing some skill teaching. It's such a joy to see a guy who has spent most of his time on his laptop, on his computer, and we show him in my community center how to fix a tap. You know, well, somebody else has to do that. No. Well, let's do it. You take the wrench, and here, unscrew the tap. Here, put the new washer in. Here, screw it back together, and now it runs properly. The light that goes on is pure joy for the younger man who learned that he can actually do. It's very empowering. So that's what we're all about, is helping younger guys too. It's not just for older men. And in my shed, the president is, I'm going to guesstimate 35 years old, and the vice president is about 40, and they're both working and they're engaged in their community. So I'm an older guy. I started the shed. We attract younger guys all the time. And so that kind of intergenerational work is founding, it's one of the really important things that sheds across Canada are really proud of. We don't brag about it much, but we're going to brag about it tomorrow at a webinar. But we love working with younger people. And we bring younger men into the shed for that reason.
I think that that's absolutely brilliant. So let's imagine that some of the people who are listening are like, "Oh, we need one of those in our community." Okay. How do you do that? How do you set up a men's shed?
Well, I think you can go to Minshed Canada's website and they have a fantastic couple of pages in terms of the steps you follow. You could do the same thing by going to the Alberta Minshed Association, Or if you're in your community in Alberta, you could go to FCSS and they have a startup kit and they could get you started. Uh, you could go to one of the healthy aging regional people, and they would help you get started. And then at some point, they would ask us to come in and help with the fine tuning and the maybe be speaking at a public meeting, helping you put a team together to uh, decide well, do we really want to do this? What did we want to do? How are we going to do it? Uh, but you have to ultimately get a group of guys together, whether it's two or three to start, and then decide, well, what direction do we want to go? Do we want to be we're old buggers and we don't handle power tools anymore. So what are we going to do? What activity can we do? What things can we do for the community? So it all sort of starts out with that small group of guys and then just builds from there.
And my answer is that it's my job primarily to support men or women in a community to help start a shed. We have grants available, and we have experience. I started my shed with just myself. So I can advise, and usually there's two groups. One is a group of guys who wants to start a shed, and they say, well, how do I go about it? I'm here to help. That's my job, quite literally. Secondly, there's an organization in a community, and usually, in the social services sector, it's often women. So women are our best allies, but they want to know from their program. They have community programs, and the women are showing up, and the guys are not. How do we attract men? How do we get them to come to a meeting? And that's where I can help, quite literally by Zoom sessions or even coming in person. But we'll help two guys or one guy start a shed, and we'll help them through the progress of attracting more men. We have resources at Men's Sheds Canada and Alberta Men's Sheds Association. And one of the most important things that maybe we'll get to later is, and we're also linking you to other men who are starting men's sheds. And guess what? We're all in this together. So we're here as resources, both Punch and I, to help any man or woman who wants to start a shed in your community.
I love that you added that in, Brian, because it was the idea of men's sheds has come to me from both men and women. There have been women who shared about it as well, and I know that there are some women who actively support local sheds. Not that they're, whatever they're doing, just putting up the posters or, making sure that the coffee, pot is good, or, whatever it is, that kind of thing. But I love that you brought up that gendered component, because there there are a lot of women out there who think this is a great idea, and how can we help, and how can we support, and how can we start? So thanks for including us. We appreciate that.
Well, women
The
are our best allies.
best allies.
Yeah.
Our number one ambassador in Alberta is a woman.
And I think that that's brilliant. And we have someone in the chat. Murray Armitage says, I'm a member of Vegreville Men's Shed, which has been in operation for 20 months. Fantastic. So we'd love to hear more about what's going on in your shed, and how you like the idea, how it's growing, and that's great. Brian, I have a question. So we've got Punch here from Alberta. Do we have provincial representation from most or all of the provinces right across Canada for men's sheds?
We do in Manitoba. We have the Men's Sheds Manitoba Incorporation. We have Ontario, Men's Sheds Ontario. We have Alberta. We have BC, and we have Quebec.
Nice.
Now, I want to help start provincial associations in the rest of the country, because the closer like Punch relates now to all the guys in Alberta. But if we take Saskatchewan, they're a whole, or the Maritimes, they're a whole other group, and Maritimes in particularly don't, they like to have people who are local, not mainlanders, I'm going to say. So we do have provincial associations in Manitoba and Ontario, and I want to start one in Saskatchewan. So I'm the contact for Saskatchewan right now. But I can, whenever anybody thing comes up from Manitoba, for example, I'll refer them to the Mentions Manitoba Incorporated. They're the more local. They're the pointy end of the stick when it comes to supporting sheds. And just like Punch and Men's Sheds Alberta are the pointy end of the stick when it comes to bringing guys together in Alberta. So we have resources, and I can either refer men to a provincial association or I can help you in a province without a provincial association.
Let's talk
The
a little bit of, oh, sorry, Punch, go ahead.
folks up in Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, have made the journey over to Cold Lake, Alberta,
Yep.
to visit their shed and see how they have developed their shed. So they saw something successful, and they wanted to uh, emulate it, and so they went off and took a journey. And that happens in so many cases when someone hears about they want to start a shed. There's always somebody there from another shed that can help them.
I'd like to talk a little bit in nitty-gritty. We're talking primarily about the people that it takes and the energy that it takes and the work to get people in the door and and interested in and aware of it. What about financial costs? What does that look like?
So I'll answer first. That's a typical challenge for most men's sheds is how do we get a space? How do we get a space? Because it costs money. And how do we get the resources to buy the coffee pot to put it on to be available to start a shed? So Men's Sheds Canada offers a startup grant. We have a very low threshold for how you qualify. If you're two guys or if you're a woman in a community association and you want to start a shed, we have a startup grant of $1,000. And that can get you a whole lot. That can buy the coffee pot and the coffee, or it can buy you newspaper ads, or it can buy you posters to put up. We have that available, and all you got to do is talk to me about it. And we're pretty open. We want to support you in whatever way we can financially to get things started, but we don't just give out a wad of cash. We want to know what you want to do with it. But we'll help you actually with what's worked in most communities. How can you spend that money to effectively get the word out and bring men in? And so that's the first financial support that we can offer. And the second one, as a shed grows and becomes a larger, more long-term entity and wants to actually attract more funding and maybe build up their capacity to make things in the community or become financially stable, we offer a larger capacity building grant. And lots of guys are taking advantage of that. And so that it gets them over the hump of becoming financially sustainable. Because when you have a long-term cost for a facility, or you need more power, more tools, or you need maybe if they're making money off of firewood, they need instead of an axe, you need
A
the big
splitter,
equipment. Yeah, the
big
splitter,
splitter.
whatever you need, we help with that because we want you to succeed. We want to help you to succeed. And so that's the financial aspect from my perspective. Do you want to add anything to that, Punch?
Well, I think that this thing has grown, uh, we discovered pretty quickly in Alberta that trying to cover the entire province with a small group of guys wasn't going to cut it. So it's the and each of the sheds needs support, and they can get support from Men's Shed Canada, uh, but there's still a need to have some type of backbone operation in the province. And where you're doing outreach, you're creating awareness, you're developing, helping to develop sheds. Then once the sheds are developed, then you have to be in there to help support the guys because it doesn't always go like the magic dust says. That there are challenges in sheds, so that somebody has to be there to help you provide advice. And in the long term, we want to be sure that the royal we here, are a credible organization, so that people are willing to invest money in men's health, whether it be their mental health or their physical health, whether it's addressing the challenges that were identified in the Movember report. We don't want to have the statistic remaining 2 in 5 men will not make it till they're 75 years old. And we need to do things like we use the phrase health by stealth. So we're not beating guys over the head to get a prostate test. So there's lots and lots of things at a provincial level that need to be done from a backbone perspective, and that costs money.
You talked, Brian, about getting a shed over the hump so that they become financially sustainable. What does that financially sustainable piece look like? What are some of the sheds doing to raise their own funds to become self-supporting?
Yeah, so there's many answers to that, and some that come to mind are providing some services, local services in the community that at a fairly low cost that are needed, but we're not competing with actual vendors. So repairing things, selling small products. So building and selling small woodworking products that are just really, the guys take a lot of joy in that, of building, let's say, toys or small things or doing small services in the community. So that's in part how they raise money.
Like benches and flower boxes, and
Yeah, yeah.
those are some of the things that come to mind for me.
And they often will, sometimes will build social enterprise, will fill a niche that the larger commercial community is not interested in, but we are. So we're small. So we repair things, or we fix up. I'm going to use the example of Vanderhoof, BC, where they bought the building, quite literally bought a building and started a repair shop and a oh, what's it called when you sell older things, and it's become the center of the
Like a
community.
new to you store,
A thrift
thrift shop.
shop, and they have generated so much money. They gave last year $50,000 back to the community. Now
Unbelievable.
that's a thriving men's shed. That's what we all aspire to. My shed, on the other hand, is of 15 guys, and we gave them a free barbecue. But the point is, they really appreciate the community appreciates whatever this is, and so to become financially sustainable, some sheds are supported by their communities, but they have to start raising money, raising funds in some way, and eventually they get to it. Wherever the shed is going, eventually it comes to them locally what niche they can fill to raise funds, or they can get grants locally because they're doing such good work. And it's so impactful to the community to have older men seen as assets in the community rather than a drain on the community. The impact of that is huge. Not only as male role models out there doing good in the community, that's what we want to see. And so the guys feel good about it. The community feels good about it. That kind of community connection is the next step for a shed. It's just naturally evolves that way. We don't force it, but it turns out that most men's sheds start collaborations with other community associations, and we build credibility and we stand up as positive role models in the community. It benefits the community in the end.
Like that's absolutely brilliant. Punch, anything to add?
Well, the one thing that Brian is tired of me talking about this, but we do stories, men's stories of men in sheds, and the what's happened to them. What did the shed do for them? And it was brilliant a few days ago that I have always talked about telling the stories of men. And then we were moving into this big day tomorrow about the impact of the sheds. It never occurred to me that what we were doing with the shed stories was research
Oh
about
yeah.
it was a key piece of research in terms of being able to demonstrate the actual impact in the community and on the individual men and their families. So, shed stories uh, are key from my perspective.
I'd love to dive into that a little bit more because I know that there has been some research done, and Brian, you brought this up as well, that there's the impact on the individual men and there's the impact on the community. And you talked about harnessing that fourth quarter and seeing men as assets in their community. Can you talk about what you've seen and what some of those research reports have had to say about the impact of men's sheds?
Well, we're just delving into it now. We're doing a national survey. The national survey has focused first on the positive impact of sheds on men's lives. And we do save lives, frankly, but just because, and the second part of the research is what's the impact on the community? And that's yet to come. But we do know that, you know, an older man, if you have a grandfather or a father or an uncle, you want you know that their good health is it has an impact. And so when men get together and do great things in their community, or just getting together has an impact on their families. Their families see that they're way more engaged. They're engaged about life. They're excited. They want to go back to the men's shed next week. They just can't wait. That has an impact on their families, and that has an impact on their communities. And we don't brag much, but we're inviting men to do so tomorrow and next year at the same time about International Men's Day. About, there's an impact in the community, and it's really hard to measure because we're standing out there. When you see men's sheds, guys out there cleaning up River Valley or uh, contributing to the local food bank. We're ambassadors for older guys who are doing something positive. We still have a lot of capacity. And in fact, we represent something very positive in the community and we're visible. And that's really important, I think, in communities because that's something that I don't want to get too much on a soapbox, but this is real. This is in person. This is guys standing up for what they believe in and being positive role models. There's lots of examples that are thrown out about negative male role models and uh, toxic masculinity. Well, we're the other side of the spectrum, and here we are, and we're real. And so, it's a subtle influence, but this is community-based solutions are really the answer to me as to how am I relevant in the world. And so I forget your original question, but
Okay, so let me
Impact on
jump.
communities.
yeah, yeah.
Punch is going to jump
Go
in.
ahead, Punch.
Okay, Brian mentioned this near the beginning, and he talked about when he finished working and what many men discover when they finish working is that they've lost their entire social network, is that their social network is at work, and they don't have a network outside of work. So when they end up retired, they have no friends. So then this whole thing about loneliness starts to creep in. And yeah, they might have a workshop, but it's awfully lonely being in that workshop. And so men's sheds provide an antidote to loneliness. And even if that was the only thing that we did, you think about, well, what's the chain of events from loneliness? It could end up that it becomes suicide. And so men's sheds is a really strong preventative mechanism in the community in terms of loneliness, but also all kinds of conditions. I'll use the word conditions that men ignore. They ignore the prostate. They ignore the colon cancer. They ignore their heart not working correctly. They ignore diabetes. All of these things are things that sheds address very subtly, very quietly. And when we actually get into doing some research on this, we're going to use that phrase Brian said. We save lives. we're going to change that number from two guys in five not making it to 75. So there's this huge impact that way. There's all kinds of stories about men after they'd been to a shed for a while, and you talk to their wives, they say, Joe was very quiet. He never came to the dinner table with a story. And all of a sudden he comes to the table and he's butting in. He wants to tell stories about the guys in the shed and what's happening. He wants to get up early and go to the shed. There's a whole change in attitude, a whole sense of giving people back a purpose for getting up in the morning, a purpose for getting out there in the community and doing stuff with their fellow shedders. So it's the impact is we're going to be talking about that a lot tomorrow, and hopefully some people in either in the media are going to pick up on it, funders pick up on it, government people. Canada does not have a men's health policy. Maybe we'll be able to work towards getting a men's health policy. So there's lots of things that are going to come out of tomorrow that are going to be very positive.
And we should clarify that tomorrow will be November 19th. So that maybe, I'm not sure how that relates to this, how we're going to roll this out, but that will be recorded. That will be recorded
Yes,
and available on.
that's right. So this one is recorded, that one will be recorded.
Okay.
So we'll make sure in the link notes for this one, we'll make sure that we link to that the men's shed recording that you guys are going to do tomorrow. And so yes, coming to you from the past. Those of us those who are watching the recording later on our YouTube page for the Do More Agriculture Foundation. Brian, I'd love you to also chime in on stories of things that men's sheds have done for guys or for communities that you've heard about that you'd like to share.
Yeah. I knew you'd ask the question, and it's so hard to choose. Because whether I go, and I've been to men's sheds in Ireland and England and Canada, and the commonality is they're so darn excited about doing something creative, about here, look what we built, or look what we're engaged in. And so one of the most impactful experiences for me was visiting a particular men's shed in the Cotswolds in England, where they had a couple of guys who were, I'm going to say, challenged, and they were part of the community. They were fully embraced. They could do the sanding, the final sanding, and they were so proud of it. And the other men just supported those men as equals. So that man was so proud of belonging to his shed. It's a small thing, and yet it represents what men's sheds is about. And another one is we have a shed in Edmonton or Edmonton area, sorry, well, we have sheds in Alberta. Some of them get involved in old like blacksmithing. I'd love to learn about blacksmithing. This is something that is real, that is physical, that relates to the older world, and that I'd love to be engaged in. And other men in another shed are involved in stained glass, restoring the stained glass in a church. Well, that's restoring the church. That's kind of symbolic of men, restoring ourselves. So there's so many alignments here that every story is really impactful to me, and it's all about guys being so excited about learning something new and then sharing it out in the community or incorporating us all. Being so inclusive that it can bring a tear to my eye that we're so inclusive of all men, and that's what
I
matters
have
to me. Yeah.
I have one story, and it's about the Cold Lake Man Shed. A few years ago, they decided that they wanted to make comfort birds, and these are small birds that sit in your hand, and they're very smooth, and they're like a worry stone that men and women carry. But these birds are small and they're very smooth and they're very soothing. So they made 100 of these birds, and they decided, okay, it was Christmas time. Uh, we should give them to seniors that are in residences around Cold Lake. So off they went, and they were going to distribute them. Well, this is a stereotypic vision that if you think about a long-term care facility, you think about hallways that are lined with wheelchairs and people with their heads hanging down and their hands in their lap. So these guys walk in with these birds, and they go along and they Merry Christmas to them, and there's no real reaction, but they put the bird in their hands. So then they make it down the hall, and then they turn around and they walking out, but they turn around and they look back, and all of these people have their heads up. They've rejoined the world, and it was like a miracle at Christmas time. And so that was when all those guys started to cry about something happened. Something what really positive happened for them. And that I think has motivated them for the last 3 or 4 years that they were able to do that and have that kind of an impact.
What an incredible story. What a response.
Yeah, it was.
Just that little bit of connection and love and something tactile. And wow, what a story.
And
We're,
I'm
please
going to
go
say
ahead.
other sheds also. The comfort birds are they fit in my hand. You can give them to kids in cancer wards. So when guys are making these, they're thinking about somebody else. That's what's so inspiring. Yep.
Incredible. What would you like to see in the next 5 years for men's sheds? This is my last question, and then we'll open it up to those who are here. If they would like to add any questions into the chat, please go ahead. Brian, we'll start with you. What would you like to see in the next 5 years in men's sheds?
Well, we want to make men's sheds available to every man in Canada who wants one. That's one thing. But even bigger. So what happens when guys get together in a men's shed? Wonderful things happen. If that wouldn't have happened if they were individual. What if we start a community of men's sheds? And we are starting. I want to see a community of men's sheds.
Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah. So guys linked across the country, talking about what's going on, talking and bragging about what they're doing, and sharing sharing what's going on, and then being able to visit each other. I know that if I go to Nova Scotia and I'm a men's shedder, the guys there will say, "Well, welcome, just come on in." I want to create a community of men's sheds where we're all relating across the country, where geography doesn't really divide us. And Punch has been doing this worldwide. Worldwide, he's a very modest man, but he's been doing this worldwide. I see a community of men's sheds serving the bigger community and standing up as not only connecting us, but also a role model for older men as assets to communities. We have some influence. You might call it gray power. You can call it whatever you want. But I think that we will have an influence, and we can have an influence as a community, as the shedding community. And I see that being recognized more and more over in 5 years.
Brilliant. Punch, how about you? What would you like to see in the next 5 years in men's sheds?
More sheds, more men and in sheds, uh, recognized as a credible organization, contributing to a men's health policy in Canada, and that we start a new industry in terms of tourism, men shed tourism, traveling around the world, visiting sheds.
Okay, that sounds awesome. I can just see a great big bus, and you guys are all in there. Except you'd almost need a bus with a workshop in it.
Can I say one more thing? I know you said that
Please.
in the last question. It starts with one guy or two guys wanting to start a shed. That's the invitation. That's how I did it. And so folks who are listening, guys who are listening to this or women, it starts with you joining, wanting to join us. So it's really an invitation. Join us and let's make this happen together.
Well, when I first posted on my, Facebook, my personal Facebook page about the idea of men's sheds and how, I'm so excited about this talk today with the two of you, within an hour, I had a text from a guy who runs the local lumber yard, and he says, "We're going to build one of these in bigger. This is a great idea. Let's get together and let's plan." And a couple of days later, I ran into a friend of mine who's a retired farmer, and he still has his farm, but he lives here in town now, and he goes out every day to his workshop. And so I was telling him about this idea, and he's like, "Merle, that's fantastic." He said, "Because yeah, I still have my workshop, but I'm all by myself."
Yep, yep.
So just this idea, I can see it taking off.
And we're here to help. That's
I love it. I love it. There's a comment. As a woman who works in mental health crisis service and always been drawn to supporting men, especially within the agriculture industry, this is incredible and definitely has my wheels turning. Thank you for this. Are we able to reach out to either of you to pick your brains about things early on and questions? So I think it's an invitation to put our emails into the chat if you would like to do so. And I'll also direct you to, I know that you can reach Brian through Men's Shed Canada. So if you just look up Men's Shed Canada, I know that Brian's email is there. Punch, if you're willing to put your email into the chat, or if you say, "Merle, go ahead," I can do that on your behalf, and happy to do so. Thank you, Britt. That's a fantastic comment. And Murray has his in there as well. Murray, do you have anything to add? You've got 20 months of a shed in Vegreville under your belt. If you would like to, don't mind unmuting and telling us a bit about your shed. We're all ears.
Well, thank you. Um, Actually, my wife was quite involved in starting the shed, and that's where I first heard about men's sheds was from her. She's in the social services area in addictions and stuff, and she's also part of the rural mental health um, animators group, and she was very instrumental in getting the engagement session started here in town, and then she started pulling me, then a few other key people in, and we started working together and enjoying what we were happening. We had a couple of quick information sessions that was financed through a grant, and we ended up with about 12 people who came out to shed to start with. And after about 3 months, we noticed we had a solid core of 7 to 8 people coming out to every meeting, every group, everything. And we managed to find a place for a workshop. It's kind of a square, the front half of a Quonset behind an old museum on the east end of town. And it has a little room with a locked door so we can store our tools in there and try to keep everything safe. Um, yeah, and we've noticed the people who come and the changes in them and in us. So,
What can you
Where
tell us
do
a bit
where
more? What are some of those changes that you're seeing?
people feeling more accepted, excited to come, uh, looking forward to it. I always get there early to open up and kind of get things half ready, and then suddenly now there's about 4 or 5 of us there early, chatting and getting things going. So things morph and continue to change and improve.
where did you get some of your tools there, Murray?
Oh, we got some of our tools from another shed, that infamous or famous Cold Lake shed, and we made contact with them. We asked, "Oh, where can we find tools?" And somebody said, "Oh, contact this guy in the Cold Lake shed." So we did, and I went up there with a pickup truck and came back with it, the back seat and the box, just stuffed full of tools, most of which have been quite useful. Some we haven't found a way to work them into our shed activities yet, but we're going to make them also available to other sheds that are starting up. We have a shed in Vermilion to the east of us. I've had an inquiry from an FCSS person in Innisfree, which is also between us and Vermilion. So, you know, I'll get them on to Punch and those guys and see if they can get some support out of Edmonton and locally to help them get going.
It's the sort of thing that I can imagine some, farmers who are maybe retiring and, passing on, and they're like, what do you do with all these tools, right? My kid lives in the city in a condo, and, they can take maybe, one or two pieces, but what are you going to do with the rest of them? It's the sort of thing that I think that if more farmers knew about this, they'd be like, hey, yes, I've used this tool for a few years, but it's still in really good shape and I look after it. And, I'd love it to be used by, a group that, could get some benefit from it. So I think that there's some opportunity that way as well to think about that sharing community, that sharing economy.
I agree, and we've seen that in our shed, and we have a member who's not retired. He's still farming. He finds it a bit challenging to attend in the busy season of being a mixed farmer with cattle. So, but he's quite active, and we're always spreading the word out there to people to, hey, bring your buddies in off the farm, or if they're coming into town off the farm, bring them out. So.
Yeah, really, really good.
Mhm.
Brian and Punch, over to you. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I just wanted to reinforce what Murray just said. Starting a shed and being the leader. It almost involves just showing up early, opening the door, and putting on the coffee pot and making the space. And that's how sheds start. And wow, we could sure use a lot of guys like Murray and farmers who bring in, you know, it's your choice. Just you could bring so much to a group and in your community, and I say that I'm not a farmer. I'm an urban guy, and I meet all kinds of guys. I meet veterans. I meet roofers. I meet doctors in my. It's such a joy to connect with guys in my community. I'm learning so much. I thought my learning was over, but no, it's just begun and through men's sheds. So I invite you to join us. And if you have any qualms about it, I put my email in there. We can talk about it. I can help connect you with a shed or help you start a shed. And it's really not rocket science because I did it. That's all I'll say.
That's fantastic. Punch, final word to you.
Merrill, I just want to thank you very much for connecting us to the farming community because uh, I was looking through the statistics yesterday and looking at all of the communities around Alberta, and there are so many rural communities that we want to get into. And so, thank you very much for connecting us to the farming community, not only in Alberta, but right across the country.
That's
So, thank you.
absolute. You're welcome, and I'm just happy to do so. I think that you guys are incredible ambassadors. You were a fantastic panel. It's a great idea, and the Do More Agriculture Foundation thinks it's wonderful, and we want to lift you up and shout you from the rooftops and the tops of the
Thank you.
tractor cabs. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks.